Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Coding on Swiboe, the next generation text editor. Top of the show business today. What do we have? I think only the RPC. I want to speak about the RPC for a second again. That is the request for comments about the layered RPC system. I wrote this pull request a while ago. It has been open for a while. There have been some comments, but lately, the last 2 days, there have not been any comments anymore, which I think is fine. Maybe there are just all things are addressed, but in case you are still interested, have a look at the RSC, leave some comments. Otherwise, I will go ahead and merge it on the weekends, and then we can concentrate on actually implementing it. Okay, let's get started with coding. So yesterday, what did we do yesterday? Yesterday, we were actually working on getting results from called RPC backs. So basically here we call, like this is one RPC and this one RPC calls another RPC. So this RPC actually calls this RPC here, which boils down to calling this RPC, and this RPC is returning success. And here in this call, so here we create the successful value, which has some value inside of it, and then we return this successful value from this RPC through context finish. And yesterday we actually changed our code so that we can get this RPC back. So here we get the result back from this RPC call through the wait function, and then now we can actually check that it was okay. And today we have like a logical way forward would be to now also add error reporting, so that we, if is okay returns false, that we can also unwrap the error and understand what the error has been from calling the RPC. But today I'd rather want to make some progress on handling streaming RPCs, just because it is more fun and I feel like it. So how do streaming RPCs work? This is the implementation for the RPC that list files, so that recurses into a directory and lists all the files and streams them to the RPC caller. This is already implemented in Rust, and I would like to call this RPC now from Python and see that we get all the results. So how is that actually working? So this is the RPC call, and what it does is it gets a context, of course, here, and then it spawns a thread that recurses into a directory, and it regularly calls context update. So this is basically sending a partial reply, and once it is done, it calls context finish, and once this context finish is done, the RPC is done, and it must no longer reply. Like, it must no longer send any data. And on the client side, this is the client context that we have here. The Rust version of the client context has two functions that we didn't wrap yet in the Python world, which is try receive and receive. And those are listening for partial values from an RPC, so updates essentially from streaming RPC, and return those. So to actually get useful data from our RPC, we have to, from our list files RPC, we actually have to wrap those values. But let's start out with changing the Python code so that we only have one client. We throw away all the other clients that we had. So all of this goes away. All of this goes away. We don't have a clients list anymore. So, and we actually don't even need a callback for the moment, but I will only comment, like I will delete this one, and this one I will leave commented out. And we don't need a serving client 1, we only need one serving client, and that's not even a serving client anymore, that's now just a client, right? So we don't have an RPC callback 1 anymore, and we are not registering any callbacks. Basically what I want to do now is I want to call Swiboe client call. I want to call this RPC, and this RPC is called list files right now, and it is registered with the core because it is part of the server binary. So there's really no reason why it should be part of the server binary. It can just as well be a standalone binary, but for now it is part of the server binary. So it is always available when the server runs. So let's start out by just calling that. So we call test.test, no, list files, and what arguments does it take? Hey, good morning, parts. No worries, you're not late. You arrived precisely when you meant to. So the request just takes a directory which is a string. So let's say, so which directory am I in here? Let's just use this directory for now. So directory is this one. And so we list the file and we take a JSON, or we can just do it like this. We can say JSON dump string, right, like so. And the string is a Python dictionary, and that has one entry that is called directory, and that is directory, right? That should be it. And that gives us back a client context. And on this one we can call wait. That's all we can do on this one right now, right? If we have a RPC context here, all we can do is wait for that. So we have a call result, and then we can check if the result was okay, and if the result was okay, we can unwrap it, which we must have somewhere here too, right here. And if it is okay, then we unwrap it, and we print it out. What is it complaining about? Invalid syntax. What did I mess up? That's right. There's a closing brace missing. And invalid constant name RPC callback. That is also true because I commented that out, so that doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's it. Let's see what happens. So if we now run that, we get an error because what did I mess up? It is not called client call, it is called client call RPC, right? Yes. And actually that takes a client as first argument, of course. That would have been a bad mistake. And you can see that we actually, apparently our RPC runs through and we get a returned value that is the JSON object null. And that's no surprise because if we look at the plugin list, the plugin list returns an empty response and it has those partial updates, which are the files, right? And we don't do anything with those right now. So basically what we would need is something like in between, after we did the call, we are not immediately waiting for the context, but we want to have something like Swiboe RPC context receive, right? And that will be, we'll take the client context, and now the question is, what does that return? Because there can be multiple things that can happen, right? And the client receive, we can say, of course, that returns a result object, so there might be errors, but since our error handling in Python is not there anyways, so for now we will completely ignore that and just unwrap and hope that everything just works out fine. But we can also get a null value, right? So we can either get back a JSON object, which we will return as a string, or we can get back nothing, which means that the RPC is done. So I think we can probably model that very easily by saying this function, this Swiboe RPC context receive that will return. Raise type is a C char pointer, and the argument type is just a pointer to a client context, like so, right? So basically, we will either return a JSON blob as a string, or we will return a null pointer, in which case there's nothing more to receive, and the RPC is at its end. Now let's write the Rust code. We copy and paste this function, and then we change it and say Swiboe RPC context receive. And it takes a mutable pointer to a client context. That is absolutely and totally correct. And it returns an RPC result. Is that even correct? No, I don't think that's correct. The client receive function, where are you, client context? RPC client, here we go. No, that is not giving us back a RPC result, it's just giving us back a JSON object. So in this case here, we're not returning an RPC result, we're really returning a const C char, right? A pointer to a const C char. And now the RPC receive call will definitely not consume the client context, so this must be a mutable reference instead of a box. And then we call receive unread, right? And we add our usual error handling no-com here, so that we remember to ever do that someday. Soon, actually, very soon now, I believe. And what else? Now we actually have to look at the object. And if the object is none, then we will return something like a mutable null pointer. I think we used that before. No, we used that before, but it's no longer in here. So let's look that up. Rust nightly mutable, something like this, mutable null. So I'm sure it is somewhere in standard pointer, but I don't remember how it is called. We want to create a null pointer. Use the null function to create null pointers. Okay. But we don't need a const null, we need a mutable null. Where are you? Standard pointer null creates a null pointer. Yes, we're getting there. We are getting there. Null underscore mute is what we want here. Return. Oh, actually, no. Actually, what we want is we want a const pointer. We need standard pointer here. Beautiful. So if we didn't receive an object back, it is null. If we did receive an object back, some blob, or let's call it value, then we actually want to JSON, inserted JSON to string that. and this we definitely have a couple of times, right? And we say, actually, we have to be a little more. We have to have some more code, right? We basically want this. So we create a JSON string from our object, which is better if we actually call it JSON value. Object is fine, but here we not call it value, we call it JSON value. And then we convert it into a string. And after this, we convert the string into a C-string object and turn it into a raw pointer, and this is the thing that we will return, right? So we're already done here. That should be it. Let's see if the compiler agrees. The compiler agrees, so let's try our new function out. We first have to define the function, so we have a new function that we call, oh no, it's already there. Just have to look at the value, and we call the value b, and then we print out b. So we only look at one of the streamed values, not all of them, right? So let's see what happens. And that seems like we already got quite some values here. That's really nice. So what happens if we do that again though? What happens if we get a null pointer back and we get none back? See, that's perfect. We can just say while while true, infinite loop, Python. True is with a capital T. We get our object, and well, object is, let's call it JSON blob, and if JSON blob is none, we break out of this thingy, otherwise we print it. Why are you unhappy? Because B is not defined, and you're perfectly right to say so. Then let's try again. And everything still works. Great. So now what I want to do actually, I want to build a useful RPC out of that. So the list files RPC, as you can see, will actually list really all the files that are in there. So also those that are under the target directory and binary and whatnot. So in many ways, it is not particularly useful for fuzzy opening. That is what we use it for, right? If I run the terminal GUI here, which I'm not sure that I actually did. Am I in the right directory? Oh yeah, term GUI. Yeah. So basically, in the terminal GUI, we have this fuzzy file opening code, and that is cool and everything, but it shows every kind of file, also binary files, which we will never ever want to open in an editor. And now I actually want to build a toy RPC that is able to filter out values that we're not interested in. So basically, it is a forwarding RPC of some sorts, if you would like, that calls the list files one, and whenever it receives a value, it will filter out the values that we're not interested in, and then pass on the values that we're interested in. So basically, like, we can also be here more specific and say JSON is then our JSON dot load string, I guess, JSON blob, right? So our value looks like that. And then we can say, well, value.files we actually filter on. You can say something like is value for value in value.files if, for example, value ends with point rust, right? And now we echo those values, right? So the terminal GUI is now done. So what I mean is this fuzzy find out, right? This matches all the files in the current directory, and you can see that most of them are target files. Of course, we also have, like, if I enter test.py or something, or in terminal GUI directory, but if I add termgui.rust, then this will bubble up to the top, so it is working, but there's all this craft here that we're not really interested in. So yeah. Okay, so let's check if this filtering actually works the way I was expecting it to. And it says dict object has no attribute dot files, and that's true because it's a Python dictionary, so we actually have to access it as a Python dictionary. And there we go. So you can see from all the files that we're listing, only one remains, and that is actually true because we are in the C client, and the only Rust file we have right now is this one here. So this is perfectly correct. Okay, so let's build an RPC that actually deals with all that. The simplest RPC possible, and we call it list Rust files. Why not, right? And basically it will look exactly like a plugin list file, so it also takes a request that has only one entry, which is dictionary. So here we would like to, we just assume that the arguments are fine, so we should say JSON load string arguments, and then we say this are our arguments, and then we say our directory is args directory, right? And now we just copy this logic here, so this can go away, but we basically keep this one going up here. So this RPC now calls through to the original list files RPC, and then we receive all the values and we filter all the values for Rust files, and then we wait until this RPC is completely done. And then, of course, we also have to return true from our RPC. So we have to make something like a call to RPC finish, RPC server context finish. That is our context, which we will actually rename to server context. And we need to create that results object, and that results object we can simply create by saying like so, right? We're not returning anything. Actually, we can be more explicit and say that actually returns null, right? I hope that this is valid JSON. Let's check that real quick. Import JSON dump string, not dump string, load string, null. And that works. Great. Okay. And I think so far so good. Of course, we don't pass the results on yet, right? So basically, once we've filtered this value, we actually have to do something like Swiboe RPC context update. That is how we called the function that sends partial updates. And that takes the RPC context for sure, and it also takes a JSON object, so something like JSON dump string value, right? And of course, this function is not defined yet, and RPC context in our case here is the client context. This function is not defined yet, so let's go and define it. So here we actually have the update function, and that returns, well, eventually it has to return some sort of error, right? But right now it doesn't. How is it called? Update. Is it called update? I'm sure it's called update. Where is it? Where is it? New? Receive? Oh, that's actually, it's not the client context, it is the server context that calls update, right? Because it's the server who has to update stuff. And yeah, so it's very simple. It just takes this serializable object, but actually then we be correct here and say this is not RPC context because it is actually server context update, right? And down here too, that is actually server context, and it takes the server context. Perfect, really nice. And server context here. So we copied this function this time, and the server context update takes a mutable server context, and it doesn't take an RPC result. It actually takes a string, which is the JSON string. We call that a JSON C buffer. And that is, of course, a const cchar pointer, and we take ownership of that. So we basically just need to have it like this, right? So first, we actually update is not consuming the context, so we take a mutable pointer to a client to a server context. Then we convert our C buffer, which is called JSON C buffer, into a JSON string, and then we do not call finish, we call update, and update just takes the JSON string object. Like so. And I think that's it. Let's double check that we made everything correct here in the context update. Yes, that takes a, oh, that would be wrong. It takes a pointer to a server context, and it also takes a C char pointer, right? And I think now we're good. And now how to test? How to test, that's a good question, right? We can bring up this one, and that just runs through because we don't sleep. Now we sleep again, and now we have this new RPC registered, but now we have to call it from the terminal GUI. Let me make a new tab for that. Terminal GUI here. And, whoa, sorry. So instead of calling list files here, we call our new RPC, which is called list rust files. List rust files. And this is still correct, right? The list file request will look very much the same, or it will look exactly the same. So even though we are not calling the list files plugin, this will translate to valid JSON for this particular call. So this should work. This should work. So let's run the terminal GUI, and then we'll see. Aha! Aha, aha, aha. There is a mistake. What's this mistake? What did I do? Apparently, I copied something into this place here that should not go there. Okay, and now if I basically I changed the completer widget, so the fuzzy finder, to not call the full list files RPC, but actually call the list rust files RPC, which is defined by this Python function up here. So let's see what happens if I now press Ctrl T. And it crashes. Oh, that's unfortunate. Expected value, it says. So apparently I'm sending invalid JSON. That's really unfortunate. And how can it be fixed? Where actually is it fixed? What is wrong? What is wrong? We receive a JSON blob. If the JSON blob is good, we convert it, we filter on it, and then we dump it again. And why is that not good? Value string is JSON dump s value. Why are you not liking this? Oh, I understand what we're doing wrong actually. We never, what do we? No, I think it's fine. Actually, I think the logic is fine. I think it's just something with the encoding. And what might be wrong? So we are getting a value string, we're returning this value string, and that seems perfectly fine to me. Yeah, that seems like fine, good enough JSON for me. Where are we actually printing out this callback called? Oh, it's all down here, which makes not too much sense. Let's put it up here. So that seems fine to me, but apparently something else is not fine here. It is unhappy with expected value. It seems to be unhappy with this. So let's turn it into an empty JSON object and see what happens. Nope, still not happy. Where are we actually printing this JSON blob thingy? Actually, we do that here, right? We can just forward this call result if we want to. Right? We don't actually have to construct one. We can just forward the one that we get from our original call. Let's see if that is satisfying. Yeah, kinda, except that it dies. Why does it die? Oh, because we call unwrap here, right? Unwrap is actually consuming our JSON blob value, and that is not okay. So we cannot consume it twice because, of course, context finish will also consume it. So still not. Okay, so we have to debug a little deeper in the terminal GUI. What is wrong? How are we on time? Oh, 33 minutes. So we have enough time to look at that. So basically, here we actually call this RPC, list Rust files, and then here we have this RPC object. And in this RPC object, we actually have, here we have try receive. And we call unwrap on that. And it is complaining that we have a syntax error. And I'm not quite sure. Maybe I am wrong with, maybe it is not called files, but no, I'm pretty sure it is called files. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called files. So I believe that it actually dies here. So let's make sure that this is true. We actually don't need a release build for that. So it compiles a little faster. Maybe it's also dying here, I'm not quite sure. Let's see. Alive in 106, in 106, in 106, and then in 110. So it is actually it is coming till here, and then it is unable to unwrap that value. That is really peculiar. So let's remove these again and try again. So reset and run. So that seems like perfectly valid JSON to me. Why is it complaining? Why is it complaining? So it says like it cannot convert this from a list files update. This is really interesting, isn't it? So let's go back here and actually change this again to calling the original RPC. So our Python code is not involved. And then I want to see the differences between this JSON blob here and the JSON blob we actually get from the original one. And of course, this one contains much more files, but otherwise that seems to be very much the same thing to me. Interesting. It is probably a very stupid mistake here. So let's call our Python code again, and let's have a look at the list files update. List files update takes files which is a vector of string. Yes. Yes. Let's just print the output for a second and not do anything with it. So that gets files, which is a list of files, and it only gets this once. So why is it unhappy with decoding this? I feel like I have a stupid mistake or I'm misunderstanding something. List files update. So let's change the list files function to actually only ever send one file. Or maybe two. Let's say if file's length is smaller than 1, then we push something in here, otherwise we don't. Of course, that is not production worthy, but that will help understanding what the difference is between a Rust object that is serialized and a Python object that is serialized into JSON. There shouldn't be any, as far as I understand, but there apparently is. Now, did I actually return, like, am I calling the correct RPC? No. Okay, so that didn't work for some reason. There are many files in here again. Too many to list. So what is wrong? If files length is smaller than 1, then and only then I actually push that back, right? So apparently that is not quite working, and I'm not sure why. I am not sure why. If the len is less than 1, then we push an entry. and only then. And then the len will be bigger than 1, right? Or it will be exactly 1. Oh, that's because the last one we actually don't do that. Or maybe I'm also, let me just pull up the documentation. What is the Python JSON module actually doing if I call dump s? That seems like it's the correct thing to use. No, that seems like that is actually correct. Yeah, that's also correct. Really weird. Really weird. Really weird. List files request. List files update. This is the string that we're sending out. Are we? We take the JSON-C buffer and we convert it into a string, and then we send it out. Seems absolutely, totally correct. Oh. Files? Is this actually... Is our... Well, no. I wonder if we actually have this escape characters in our code, right? But I don't think that is the case. Let's remove the unwrap real quick and then output this value again. This is actually a result object. That is correct. This is what we're expecting. Please, you can figure out what it is. Expected value, it says. Really interesting. I don't understand it. Oh, that's too bad. We were so close here. Oh well. Let's go another route and say basically we don't want this here, but we would like to have I don't know, it will be invalid JSON anyways, right? What is if I say I don't want a update here, but instead I want a set JSON object, a value, something like this. Does that actually work? Is it generally unhappy about the JSON code, or is it just no? It seems. Oh, I killed this. Actually, no, it was happy. That's so interesting. Why is it so happy now? I don't get it. Well, but if that is the case, then we can actually say, well, in this object, we go back, we say this must be valid JSON, and then we unwrap it. And here we add a no-com directly asking for a list files update does not work when we send from Python. That is interesting, and we have to investigate eventually. But for now, we just say, well, we get this JSON value object, and now inside of this JSON value object, we would like to say, well, we want to get a files entry, and we know that it's there. I think that is the syntax. Maybe we have to look in the documentation for set.json. Okay, so it doesn't like that. Expecting one of dot 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 what? No, here we are. It doesn't like get. Okay, so we need set.json documentation. Nope. Here, and we have a value, JSON value, and here we would like to find maybe. Yeah, so we would like to have something like find files and unwrap that, and then we would like to have that as array and unwrap that. That's what we want. And then inside of that, we actually have file, and we would like to have file is file as string and unwrap that. That should work. So this is not needed. Now let's see. Still not working. Called unwrap on a none value. Okay, let files is be files unwrap. That's it, right? Isn't it? Is it unable to find files? It is unable to find files. Okay. Is there actually a way? Can we actually find all the keys or something like that? Iterate over the value, like all the keys. No, apparently we cannot do that. Let me try this real quick. That seems very stupid, but maybe that is the problem. Who knows? No, that doesn't exist either. What is going on? Here it is. I don't understand. B contains files, and then in the next line it doesn't contain files. If the value is an object, returns the value associated with the provided key. Otherwise, returns none. So B is very clearly, or is B a string? Oh, could that be it? Yes. Oh my God, B is a string. And why is it a string? Because here we dump it as a string. Oh my God, we double encode. Oh my God, how stupid. Oh, oh, it's so painful. It's so painful, right? Here it is, right? Basically, here inside of Python, we already say, well, Swiboe server context update, we already give you a JSON encoded string because we dumped the string. And then in the update function here, we convert the string, and then we pass this string object to JSON, to the JSON update function, and that will actually encode it as a value. And that is just wrong. It must not touch this at all. It must not encode it again. And I wonder how we can fix that. Here in the update function, where is it? It's in the server context, RPC, here. Here in the update function, we give a serializable object, which is a string, and then it will actually encode this, like basically it double encodes, right? It goes ahead and then here encodes that to a value again, and in this case we actually don't want that. Absolutely not. Actually, in this case we would like to say update with JSON, something like this, and it already takes a string object. And otherwise it is like very much the same, except for that we do not call to value here, right? We not call to value. Is that actually correct? Actually, in this case, we probably just call set a JSON from string and then take the argument. And now we add here a nocom. Update with JSON is duplicate, right? We need to refactor some code, but for now we just want to make progress. So in our client library, we actually don't call update, we call update with JSON. Ooh. Nope, we want to build here too. And what does it say? It says set a JSON value, and we found a result. And I think actually we can say something here like let JSON blob or JSON value that will be set a JSON from string, taking the string, and then we expect that, and then we can say args was not valid JSON, like so. Right? Because that is a program error. If args doesn't encode into a value object, then we are unhappy. Really interesting though that we need a specialization for from string. I didn't even think about that. And here we just take the JSON value, like so. So that did compile. And boom, now it works. Look at that. Instead of everything, we now only get Rust files. Great, great. Perfect, perfect. Whew. So I'd say we cut the stream here today. The last 15 minutes were a little rough. Took me a while to understand that this is actually basically what we did is we called update, we gave it a string object that was already a JSON string, and instead of creating, like passing this as a JSON string, we actually converted this into a JSON value, which would like encode it as a string. So we sent a JSON blob that was a string, and this string contained another JSON blob, and we wanted this internal JSON blob to actually send that one out. And I believe that we might have this problem in other places too. So for example, wherever we are using certain JSON here, Swiboe RPC error, actually no, there it is fine, and here it is fine too, because we directly use from string. And or maybe we can just do that up here too. Where is this update function? Yeah, maybe I was just stupid. Basically, we can say we have a C string to string, and then we would like to have a JSON value object here. Yeah, that's actually what we want. That is precisely what we want. And where is it? Where's our server object? So actually, we can get rid of. So we copy this one over into this place here, and then we can get rid of this function we just created immediately again. And say inside of here, we expect this to be a JSON string, and if it isn't, then we complain. And then here we actually pass we don't pass on the string, but instead we pass on the JSON value, and now it should work just as well. And that was a honest and small but really annoying little mistake. Took us a while to figure that out. So now we do the correct thing, right? We take a JSON string and we convert it into a JSON value, and then we use this JSON value to update. JSON value is a asserted JSON value object, of course. Yes, so that works just as well. Okay, really nice, really nice. So today we built our first actual useful Python RPC, one that filters on the Rust file extension, and that makes the fuzzy finder much more useful. And it also feels like everything here is kind of snappy. So I would call that a success. That was nice, really nice. So let's change this filter again and say if v ends with Rust or v ends with Py, for example. So restart this RPC. We don't even have to restart the the terminal GUI to get the updated functionality. Though, of course, inside of the terminal GUI, we don't have any Python files. So let's change this to toml. So right now we only get Rust files. And if we restart this one, now we should also get the toml file. And that works. Cool. Really nice. Wonderful. Let's cut the stream here. We went for a full hour today, a little longer than intended, but we had a rough spot in the middle, searching for bugs. But hey, that's what programming is all about, searching for bugs. What do we do today, tomorrow then? Tomorrow I think we have to look into returning errors from our RPCs. So if this RPC is not succeeding, we actually want to return errors. So let's add that somewhere here. Look into returning errors from RPCs, not only successes. And once that is done, we can clean up this code and write some tests, and then we're done with the C client. And let's see what we do then. So I'll leave the stream open for another 1 or 2 minutes. If there are any questions, please post them now in the chat. And yeah, otherwise, thanks for watching already. So what did we do today? Wow. We actually support streaming RPCs in the C ABI. Wrote a toy RPC that filters on the fuzzy file RPC by file extension. Okay, let's push that. And I'll post the commit we did today in the chat. So that's our work for today. And I don't see any questions in chat for today. So thank you for watching, and I talk to you tomorrow.